The grand chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with laughter. Thousands of alien representatives from across the galaxy filled the massive crystal-domed hall, their various sounds of amusement creating an almost musical echo. At the center of their entertainment stood Captain James Walker, his uniform crisp and straight despite the humiliation he endured. "You expect us to believe," the ascended representative, Light of Truth, spoke in a voice that seemed to shimmer in the air, "that your species, barely 1,000 years into space travel, has mastered seventh-dimensional physics." Another wave of laughter rippled through the chamber. Walker kept his face neutral, though his hands clenched slightly behind his back. Earth's announcement of their breakthrough in dimensional travel had brought him here, chosen as humanity's representative, due to his role as the future commander of the experimental vessel Breakthrough. The ascended, beams of pure energy and light, floated above their designated platform. Their form shifted between colors as they addressed the council, a sign of their supposed superiority. Even we, with millions of years of scientific advancement, have only managed to harness 5 dimensions for travel. Walker cleared his throat. "With all due respect, Light of Truth, our research suggests that dimensional barriers might interact differently with human consciousness. We believe." "Consciousness," interrupted a bulbous creature to his left. "They think consciousness affects dimensional physics." The chamber erupted in fresh laughter. Light of Truth's form pulsed with what seemed like amusement. "Captain Walker, let us be clear. Your species still uses chemical rockets for most of your space travel. Your fastest ships take years to reach your system's outer planets. Yet you claim to understand something that has eluded the greatest minds in the galaxy." Walker thought of Dr. Anna Miller and her team back on Earth, working tirelessly in their underground facility. He thought of the successful tests they'd run, the impossible things they'd seen. But his orders were clear: reveal nothing specific. "We request only the opportunity to demonstrate our findings," Walker said, his voice steady. A tall, spindly alien stepped forward, its translator device clicking. "Perhaps we should humor them. After all, we could all use more entertainment in these peaceful times." More laughter followed. Light of Truth raised what passed for a hand, creating silence. "Very well. Earth may proceed with its experiments. But know this, Captain Walker, if your activities threaten the stability of spacetime in any way, the consequences will be severe." Walker nodded, maintaining his dignity. "Understood. Earth thanks the Council for its patience." He turned and walked toward the exit, the sounds of barely contained laughter following him. In the corridor outside, Commander Robert Hayes waited for him. Hayes took one look at Walker's face and knew how it went. "That bad, huh?" "Worse," Walker replied, loosening his collar. "They think we're a joke, Rob. A primitive species playing with things we don't understand." Hayes fell into step beside him as they walked toward their ship. "Well, they're half right. We are primitive by their standards. But what Dr. Miller discovered could change everything," Walker finished. "If they only knew what we've already achieved in the test chamber." He stopped walking and turned to Hayes. "The way they looked at me in there, Rob, like I was a child showing off a crayon drawing and calling it art." Hayes smiled. "Their arrogance works in our favor. Better they laugh now than try to stop us." Walker nodded slowly. Dr. Miller's last message mentioned a breakthrough with the quantum core, said something about human brainwave patterns creating unique resonances in higher dimensions. "When do we begin crew selection for the breakthrough?" Hayes asked. "We already have. You're my first pick for tactical officer, if you're interested." Hayes grinned. "Try to stop me. Someone needs to watch your back when we prove those glowing snobs wrong." As they reached their ship, Walker paused to look back at the council tower stretching into the alien sky. Its crystalline surface reflected the light of 3 suns, a testament to the advanced engineering of the galaxy's ruling species. Soon, very soon, that tower would stand witness to something unprecedented. "Let them laugh," Walker said quietly. "In 6 months, we'll show them what humanity can really do." The small Earth ship lifted off, barely noticed among the advanced vessels coming and going from the Council world. None of the mighty alien races paid it any attention. None of them suspected that this insignificant craft carried the seeds of a revolution that would shake the foundations of their understanding of the universe itself. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown to most of humanity, Dr. Anna Miller stood before a holographic display of the quantum core. Her tired eyes reflected the blue glow of countless equations and diagrams floating in the air. She hadn't slept properly in 3 days, but sleep could wait. They were close to something extraordinary. Run the simulation again, she told her computer. This time, increase the human consciousness wavelength by 0.3%. The hologram shifted, showing a complex pattern of energy waves interacting with what appeared to be folds in spacetime. Most scientists would see chaos in these patterns, but Dr. Miller saw music, a symphony of dimensions dancing together. The door behind her opened, and Dr. Thomas Reed walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, placing 1 cup beside her workstation. "Any progress?" "Look at this," she pointed to a particular wave pattern. "Every time we sync the quantum core with human brainwave patterns, we see these ripples in dimensional space. No other species in the database shows this interaction. There's something unique about human consciousness." Reed sipped his coffee, studying the display. "The Ascended would say we're seeing what we want to see." "The Ascended," Miller replied with a slight smile, "aren't looking in the right places. They've spent millions of years studying the physical properties of dimensions, but they never considered consciousness as a factor." The hologram suddenly flashed red. Both scientists leaned forward as new data poured across their screens. Miller's hands flew over the controls, adjusting parameters. "That's impossible," Reed whispered. "No." Miller's voice was filled with excitement. "That's exactly what we've been looking for. The human mind doesn't just perceive higher dimensions, it resonates with them. We're natural dimensional travelers. We just never knew how to access this ability." A quiet alarm sounded, announcing a visitor. Captain Walker entered the lab, looking fresh despite having just returned from the humiliating council meeting. "Please tell me you have good news," he said, "because I just spent 3 hours being laughed at by every advanced species in the galaxy." Miller's eyes sparkled. "Better than good news, Captain. We're ready for the next phase. The Breakthrough's quantum core isn't just a machine. It's an amplifier. It takes our natural ability to perceive and interact with higher dimensions and magnifies it exponentially." Walker looked skeptical. "Natural ability?" "Dreams, Captain," Reed explained. "Intuition, creativity. All these things might be our minds naturally touching higher dimensions. We just never had the tools to focus and control it before." Miller pulled up a new display, showing the completed Breakthrough vessel sitting in its hidden dock. "The ship is ready. We've installed the modified quantum core. Now we just need the right crew, people whose minds show the strongest dimensional resonance." "I've already started crew selection," Walker said. "Commander Hayes is on board as tactical officer. But are you certain about this, Doctor? The Council made it very clear what would happen if we destabilize spacetime." Miller turned off the hologram and faced Walker directly. "Captain, what we're about to do will rewrite every rule. They think they know about dimensional physics. The Ascended believe they're masters of reality because they can manipulate 5 dimensions. But humans, we can perceive and interact with at least 7, maybe more. We're not going to destabilize spacetime. We're going to show the galaxy what spacetime really is." Walker nodded slowly. "How soon can we begin trials?" "The quantum core will be fully calibrated in 48 hours. After that," she smiled, "we find out what humanity is truly capable of." As if responding to her words, the quantum core in the next room pulsed with a soft, blue light. Through the observation window, they could see the strange patterns it created in the air, patterns that seemed to twist in impossible ways, hinting at realities beyond normal human perception. "They won't be laughing for long," Reed said quietly. Walker watched the quantum core's pulsing light, remembering the mockery in the council chamber. "No," he agreed. "Soon they'll understand exactly what they've been dismissing. Humanity isn't just joining the galactic community. We're about to show them a whole new universe." The three humans stood in silence, watching the quantum core's light dance across the lab. In just a few days, they would attempt something no species had ever done before. And if they succeeded, the laughter of the Galactic Council would turn to awe. The breakthrough floated silently in deep space, far from Earth's busy shipping lanes. Its sleek hull gleamed under the distant starlight, looking deceptively simple for a ship about to make history. Inside, 12 crew members sat at their stations, each chosen for their unique mental resonance with higher dimensions. "All systems check complete," Commander Hayes reported from his tactical station. "Quantum core is stable and synchronized with crew brainwave patterns." Captain Walker sat in the command chair, his fingers lightly touching the neural interface panels built into the armrests. "Dr. Miller, are you ready to begin the test?" In the science section, Dr. Miller monitored a complex array of instruments. "Quantum core is at full power. Remember, everyone, this isn't like normal space travel. When we activate the dimensional drive, focus your minds on the target coordinates. The ship will respond to our collective consciousness." Walker took a deep breath. "All crew, prepare for dimensional jump in 10 seconds. The quantum core's hum deepened, filling the ship with a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Lights dimmed as power redirected to the experimental drive. 5 seconds, Walker continued. 4, 3, 2, 1. Initiate jump. Reality twisted. Every crew member gasped as their minds expanded into higher dimensions. Colors they had no names for flooded their vision. Shapes that couldn't exist in three-dimensional space danced around them. The universe turned inside out, and then right side in, and then did something that no human language had words to describe. "This is," Hayes whispered, "I can see everything." Through the viewport, they watched as normal space folded away like paper. The crew's combined consciousness, amplified by the quantum core, pushed the ship into realms that the Ascended had never imagined possible. "Captain," Dr. Miller's voice shook with excitement, "we're not just traveling through the seventh dimension. We're perceiving it, understanding it. The Ascended were wrong. Higher dimensions aren't just paths for travel. They're layers of reality itself." Walker could see it too. In this state, he could perceive the flow of time like a river, see the way gravity wrapped around mass like cloth, understand how quantum probability shaped the very fabric of existence. "Look," one of the crew members shouted. Those structures, floating in the higher dimensional space, were massive geometric shapes that defied normal physics. They pulsed with energy and purpose. "Those aren't natural," Dr. Miller said, her instruments going wild. "They're artifacts, technology built by someone, some civilization that could access these dimensions long ago." "Can we study them?" Hayes asked. "Not yet," Walker decided. "Our first test is just to prove we can make the jump and return safely. Mark these coordinates. We'll come back with proper research equipment." The test continued for exactly 10 minutes. The crew learned more about the universe in those 10 minutes than humanity had discovered in its entire history. They saw how dimensions folded into each other, how consciousness could shape reality, how the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. Preparing to return to normal space, Walker announced, "Everyone focus on our starting coordinates." The return journey was smoother than the departure. Reality reassembled itself around them. Stars reappeared, and the familiar three dimensions settled back into place. The breakthrough emerged exactly where it had started, although every person aboard had been forever changed by what they'd seen. "Jump successful," Hayes reported, checking his instruments. "All systems normal. No sign of space-time distortion or instability." Dr. Miller's hands flew over her console. "The data we collected. This changes everything. The Ascended think they understand dimensional physics, but they've barely scratched the surface. What we just saw, what we experienced, it proves that human consciousness is the key to understanding the higher dimensions. Walker stood from his chair, looking at each member of his crew. Their faces showed the same mix of awe and determination he felt. Send the test results to Earth. Tell them. He smiled. Tell them humanity just took its first real step into the universe. As the breakthrough turned toward home, its quantum core humming contentedly, the crew couldn't help but think about the Galactic Council's mockery. Soon, very soon, they would show the galaxy exactly what humanity could do. And no one would be laughing then. The Ascended didn't knock on doors. They simply appeared. Their glowing forms materialized in Earth's main conference room during an emergency meeting about the breakthrough's test results. The sudden intrusion sent coffee cups clattering and chairs scraping back. Light of Truth pulsed with angry red and orange colors. You were warned about the consequences of dimensional experimentation. Dr. Miller stood her ground. Data tablets scattered across the table in front of her. Captain Walker and Commander Hayes flanked her, their faces set with determination. Our experiments were completely successful, Miller responded. We detected no space-time distortions or dimensional instabilities. Impossible. Another Ascended being flickered. Our sensors detected massive energy waves from your system. Energy that shouldn't exist. Energy that threatens the fabric of reality itself. Walker stepped forward. What you detected was controlled. We understand more about dimensional physics than you realize. Understand. Light of Truth expanded, filling half the room with shifting colors. Your species is barely out of its cradle. You cannot comprehend the forces you're playing with. The human leaders exchanged glances. They had expected this reaction, but not so soon. The Ascended's ability to detect their test was concerning. We've seen things in the higher dimensions, Hayes spoke up, including artifacts that suggest we're not the first to travel this way. Artifacts your people have never found. The Ascended beings rippled with what might have been surprise or fear. Light of Truth contracted slightly before speaking again. This is your only warning. Cease all dimensional research immediately. Surrender your findings and the vessel you call Breakthrough. Do this and Earth may maintain its place in galactic society. Dr. Miller laughed softly. You don't understand what's happening here. Human consciousness naturally resonates with higher dimensions. We're not forcing our way through like your technologies do. We're walking through doors that were always open to us. Lies. Light of Truth flared brightly. Your primitive minds cannot possibly. We saw you, Walker interrupted quietly. In the higher dimensions, we saw how your 5-dimensional technology works. It's impressive, but limited. You're like people living on the surface of a pond, unaware of the sky above and the depths below. The Ascended beings drew together, their colors swirling in rapid communication. When they spoke again, their tone had changed from dismissive to threatening. You have 48 Earth hours to comply. Surrender your research and your ship. If you refuse, Light of Truth's form darkened ominously. The Galactic Council will be forced to quarantine your entire system. No ships in, no ships out. Earth will be alone. After the Ascended vanished, the room erupted in argument. Some officials wanted to comply, fearing isolation. Others demanded immediate military preparation. Walker turned to Dr. Miller. How much did they really detect? Not enough, she replied, pulling up data on her tablet. They saw the energy our jump created, but they can't perceive what we actually did. Their technology is powerful, but it's like trying to understand a computer by looking at its power consumption. They're scared, Hayes observed, not of what we might do to space-time, but of what this means for their power in the galaxy. Miller nodded. The Ascended built their authority on being the most advanced species in known space. Now they're facing something they can't understand or control. Walker stared at the spot where the Ascended had been. How long until the Breakthrough is ready for another jump? 24 hours to recharge the quantum core. Why? Because they're not going to wait 48 hours, Walker said grimly. Their threats about quarantine were just for show. They're going to try to stop us before we can prove what we can do. Hayes checked his tablet, which was receiving military updates. Long-range sensors are detecting ascended ships entering the outer solar system. A lot of them. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's greatest achievement was about to become the trigger for its greatest crisis. Get the breakthrough ready, Walker ordered, and send word to the backup facility to begin preparing the second ship. The Ascended think they're coming to stop a dangerous experiment. He smiled tightly. Instead, they're about to learn what happens when you corner a species that can see reality itself. The Breakthrough's bridge hummed with nervous energy as the crew watched hundreds of Ascended ships enter the solar system. Their vessels glowed like stars, each one powerful enough to destroy a small moon. They're forming a containment grid, Commander Hayes reported, studying his tactical display. Standard formation for isolating dimensional anomalies. They still think we're just an experiment gone wrong. Captain Walker stood at the center of the bridge, his face illuminated by the holographic displays surrounding him. Dr. Miller, what's the status of the quantum core? 87% charge, she replied from her station. But Captain, there's something else. The Ascended ships, they're creating some kind of five-dimensional barrier around Earth. Through the viewport, they could see strange distortions forming between the alien vessels, like ripples in invisible water. Earth's own defense fleet looked tiny and primitive in comparison. They're not waiting for their deadline, Hayes said grimly. They're going to trap us now and destroy us later. Walker touched the neural interface on his chair, connecting with the ship's systems. Dr. Miller, could we jump with less than full power? It's risky, she warned. We might not be able to control where we end up in the higher dimensions, or worse, we might not make it back. A flash of light filled the bridge as Light of Truth appeared among them. Several crew members reached for weapons, but Walker held up his hand. This is your final chance, the Ascended being announced. Power down your vessel and surrender your dimensional technology. We will be merciful. Walker smiled slightly. You still don't understand what's happening here, do you? You're so worried about our technology that you haven't asked the real question. Why does it work for us and not for you? Light of Truth's form rippled with confusion. Your primitive understanding is exactly why we succeeded, Dr. Miller interrupted. We didn't approach dimensional travel with assumptions. We didn't try to force our way through with technology alone. We discovered that consciousness itself is the key to higher dimensions. The quantum core's hum suddenly changed pitch. Warning lights flashed across Miller's console. Captain, she called out, the barrier they're creating. It's interfering with our dimensional resonance patterns. If they complete it, we won't be able to jump. Light of Truth's colors shifted to what might have been satisfaction. Your experiment ends now. Accept your place in the natural order. Walker looked around at his crew, seeing determination in every face. They had trained for this, prepared for this moment. Each one had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to perceive and interact with higher dimensions. All hands, he announced, prepare for emergency dimensional jump. Dr. Miller, route all available power to the quantum core. Commander Hayes, mark the coordinates of every Ascended ship. You cannot escape. Light of Truth warned. Our barrier is nearly complete. Walker sat in his chair, connecting fully with the ship's neural interface. We're not trying to escape. Everyone, focus your minds. Remember what we saw in the higher dimensions. Remember how reality truly works. The crew closed their eyes, their consciousness joining through the ship's systems. The quantum core's hum rose to a fever pitch. This is madness. Light of Truth's form began to fade. You'll destroy yourselves. No, Walker said quietly. We're going to show you what humanity can really do. All crew, GMP now. Reality twisted, but differently than before. This time, the breakthrough didn't just enter the higher dimensions. It took them with it. The Ascended barrier shattered as human consciousness, amplified by the quantum core, rewrote the local laws of physics. The last thing they heard before everything changed was Light of Truth's cry of impossible surprise. The Ascended had come to stop what they thought was a dangerous experiment. Instead, they were about to witness the full power of humanity's greatest achievement. The breakthrough, its hull glowing with impossible energies, began to rise through dimensions that the Ascended had never dreamed existed. The real battle for Earth's future was about to begin. As the breakthrough rose through dimensions, reality itself seemed to bend around it. The Ascended fleet's barrier, designed to trap three-dimensional ships, shattered like glass against the power of human consciousness amplified by the quantum core. Impossible. Light of Truth's form flickered wildly as their perception struggled to understand what was happening. Your vessel, it's moving through dimensions we can't even detect. The bridge crew sat in perfect synchronization, their minds linked through the ship's neural interface. Through their combined consciousness, they could see the true nature of space-time spreading out before them like an infinite canvas. 7 dimensions achieved. Dr. Miller reported, her voice filled with wonder. No signs of instability. The quantum core is responding perfectly to our collective consciousness. Commander Hayes opened his eyes, which now seemed to reflect impossible colors. Captain, the Ascended Fleet, they're trying to follow us, but they can't. Their 5-dimensional drives can't comprehend what we're doing. Captain Walker stood from his chair, his consciousness still connected to the ship. Around them, the higher dimensions swirled with energies that no Ascended had ever witnessed. Time to show them what they've been missing. Through their enhanced perception, the crew could see the Ascended ships for what they really were, beautiful but limited constructs, trapped in lower dimensional understanding. Like stick figures trying to comprehend a sphere, the Ascended's mighty fleet suddenly seemed almost primitive. Dr. Miller, Walker commanded, initiate the revelation protocol. Miller's hands danced across her console, channeling the ship's power in ways that defied conventional physics. The quantum core pulsed, and waves of 7-dimensional energy spread out from the breakthrough like ripples in a cosmic pond. The effect was immediate and stunning. Every Ascended ship in the fleet suddenly found itself exposed to higher dimensional awareness. Their carefully constructed reality cracked, showing them glimpses of what humanity could perceive. Through the ship's communications, they heard the Ascended crying out in shock and awe. Light of Truth's form had become completely still, overwhelmed by what they were witnessing. This is what we were trying to tell you, Walker said quietly. Humanity doesn't just travel through dimensions. We perceive them. We understand them. While you built machines to force your way through, we learned to see the doors that were always there. The crew watched as their revelation spread through the Ascended fleet. They could see the higher dimensional artifacts they'd discovered earlier, now glowing with new significance. The mysterious ancient technology wasn't just machinery. It was a message, left by others who had discovered what humanity had just found. The artifacts, Dr. Miller breathed, they're not just technology. They're teaching tools, left behind by some ancient race, waiting for a species that could truly see them. Light of Truth's form had changed, shifting through colors never before seen by human eyes. All this time, we thought we were the pinnacle of evolution, but we were just children, playing with forces we couldn't truly comprehend. The breakthrough floated in 7-dimensional space, its hull shimmering with energies that made it look like a jewel of infinite facets. Around them, the Ascended fleet hung in space, their mighty weapons and barriers now seeming as obsolete as stone axes before a fusion reactor. Your barrier technology, Hayes observed, it was built on fear of what might exist in higher dimensions. But we embraced the unknown. That's why we succeeded where you failed. Walker addressed the Ascended fleet directly, his voice carrying through dimensions they were only now beginning to perceive. We don't want to replace you or overthrow you. We want to teach you. Humanity has found something remarkable, and we're willing to share it. The response came not just from Light of Truth, but from the entire Ascended fleet. Their ships began to power down, weapon systems deactivating, barriers dissolving. In the higher dimensions, their surrender looked like a flower blooming in impossible colors. Perhaps, Light of Truth said softly, "It is time for the teachers to become students once again." The crew of the Breakthrough shared knowing looks. This was more than a victory. It was the beginning of a new age for all species in the galaxy, and humanity would lead the way into dimensions that even the Ascended had never dreamed existed. 3 months after the confrontation with the Ascended fleet, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Where once there had been mockery and derision, now there was attentive silence as Captain Walker addressed the assembled species. "The fundamental nature of reality," Walker explained, standing before a holographic display of multiple dimensions, "is not what we thought. The universe isn't just a collection of physical dimensions. It's a tapestry of consciousness and reality woven together." Behind him, the Breakthrough floated outside the Council Tower's massive windows, its hull still shimmering with the strange energies of higher dimensional travel. Dr. Miller stood at a console, demonstrating how human consciousness interacted with the quantum core. "Watch," she said, activating the ship's systems. The assembled aliens gasped as reality rippled around the vessel, showing them glimpses of dimensions they had never imagined. Light of Truth, now Earth's strongest supporter in the Council, moved forward. Their form had changed since learning from humans, showing colors and patterns that reflected their growing understanding of higher dimensions. "In 3 months," they announced, "we have learned more about the universe than we discovered in 1,000,000 years of technological advancement. Humanity has given us a gift beyond measure, the ability to truly see." Commander Hayes, monitoring the training of the first joint human-alien crew, smiled as he watched several ascended beings learning to perceive higher dimensions without relying on their technology. It wasn't easy for them, like learning to see after a lifetime of blindness, but they were making progress. "The ancient artifacts we discovered," Dr. Miller continued, showing holographic images of the mysterious structures they'd found, "suggest that other species once achieved what we have. They left these markers, these teaching tools, waiting for someone who could truly perceive them." The council chamber buzzed with excitement as she demonstrated how the artifacts worked, not as machines, but as guides to understanding higher dimensional space. Species that had once competed for technological superiority now worked together, learning to expand their consciousness beyond traditional limits. Walker activated a new display, showing the construction of Earth's second 7-dimensional vessel. "This is just the beginning. With the combined knowledge of all our species, guided by human consciousness and supported by ascended technology, we can explore dimensions that none of us have even imagined yet." "But what about the dangers?" asked a concerned council member. "The barriers between dimensions. We're never in danger," Dr. Miller interrupted gently. "What you thought were barriers were actually naturally occurring dimensional interfaces. By forcing your way through with technology, you created the very instabilities you feared. Human consciousness allows us to pass through naturally, without disruption." The Breakthrough's quantum core hummed softly in the background, its energy patterns now familiar and comforting to the council members. Many of them had already signed up for the new training programs, eager to learn humanity's methods of dimensional perception. "We stand at a crossroads," Walker concluded, "not as rulers or subjects, not as advanced or primitive species, but as explorers facing an infinite frontier together." The laughter that once filled this chamber has been replaced by wonder, as it should be. Light of Truth moved to Walker's side, their forms creating an interesting contrast. Solid human matter beside energy-given consciousness. "Captain Walker speaks truth. We were arrogant in our assumed superiority. Now we understand that each species brings unique perspectives and abilities. Together, we are greater than alone." As if to emphasize their words, the Breakthrough systems activated, creating a controlled dimensional window. Through it, the assembled council could see the true nature of their universe, an endless dance of dimensions, consciousness, and possibility. "The next expedition leaves in 1 week," Hayes announced. Human and alien crews working together, exploring realms that neither of us could reach alone. Anyone interested in joining can submit their applications starting today. The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Species that had once looked down on humanity now eagerly sought places on human-led missions. The universe had changed, and with it, the very structure of galactic society. Walker looked out at the assembled aliens, remembering the mockery he'd faced in this same chamber not so long ago. But there was no bitterness in his heart, only hope for the future they would build together. "Let's show them what's really out there," he said quietly to his crew. All of us together. The age of division was over. The age of true understanding had begun.